Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush.
And I'm Alex.
And today we're here with our friend Ed, also known as PlacidBurrito.
Hey again, guys.
And today we're doing a discussion, and it's going to be on artists who have changed their sound for the better.
So, or for the worse.
Or for worse, okay. Just artists who have changed their sound. I want to start off by saying the first one that I had on my list that I immediately thought of was Opeth. And
Right.
I'm a huge fan of Opeth. They made some pretty heavy death metal before. And recently they've changed to progressive metal. But it's not really progressive at this point. It's kind of all of it's been done before and they call it progressive even though it's not really progressive music. But regardless, I still enjoy their records they put out today, but I do prefer their older records because they were some of the best metal records back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, some people call that more progressive rock even than progressive metal slightly, although I haven't heard any of the newer ones.
I mean, unfortunately, death metal is one of the few genres that I really have no experience in whatsoever, so I can't really comment on this one.
One of my examples is keeping with metal and a style of change that we like. I'll go with the obligatory Metallica. Okay, so a lot of people hate is when they went from And Justice for All to the Black Album, but most people still like the Black Album. I'm talking Black Album to Load Reload. I love that change because essentially they're like hard rock. Okay, they went hard rock.
I mean,
hard rock, heavy
that period
metal.
has its fans. That period has
And
its fans.
I'm one of them. I'm a severe fan.
I am not a fan of the Load Reload period of Metallica. That one was just not gel with me that well.
I mean, me either, but can we at least agree that where they really fell off was in the mid-2000s?
Yeah, but I'm talking a change that I liked.
The names of which I'm actually forgetting now, maybe because I blanked them out of my mind.
Talking about Lulu with the Lou Reed
and Saint Anger
collab album.
Saint Anger, that's the one. I've not actually heard Lulu. I've heard very bad things about
Lulu
it.
is by far their worst record. Load and Reload were bad, but they had some good aspects.
They're
Lulu
not
had
bad.
Nothing good to it.
They're not bad, but as an extension, to Load Reload, I do not hate Saint Anger. I think it was a bad decision. They should have kept to their guns and not pander to the new metal sort of sound, alternative metal. But anyway, go back to Load Reload. I love those albums. I love when they went country metal. Not even country metal, just country ballads. I just think if any other band that weren't already established as having classic albums debuted with Load and Reload, they'd be loved. They'd be highly revered, or they've gotten good press. I don't know, I just love the songs. They're just really solid to me. James is still on good vocals. Production's still pretty good. You can't say the production's that bad. That is just a change of style that I liked that a lot of people didn't, and that's the whole point of the discussion, I guess. And as from Kush's reaction, he's not a fan of that, but I am.
I mean, it's interesting to think about bands and artists in that light of what if they never debuted with these albums, which we revere so much? What if they came out with this? Would people's response to them be any different? And you're probably right in thinking that it would.
Yeah.
But if it's so far removed from the thing that made Metallica's biggest fans, which I am not one of them. I'm not a huge Metallica fan, to be completely honest with you, even their most revered works. It's so far removed from what people loved about that, then maybe they can't really accept the change.
That is true, and I just
regardless of the quality.
A lot of weird hard rock anyway. A lot of people don't like Pantera, even though I still do. They've aged badly according to some people. Another example, Kush, from you?
From me, one that I thought of immediately when you sent me this idea was Childish Gambino.
Oh right.
So he was originally a hip hop artist, which I still liked the majority of his work, but he was kind of hit or miss depending on the song for me. Still had a lot of songs that I liked, but this new album actually just blew me away with how much I actually enjoyed it and how much I went back to it and the replay value for me. Although it's not completely like super unique or super like dense, just the way he sang and the passion and just the how off guard it caught me. I really enjoyed the hell out of that record. So
Awaken My Love is the name
Yes,
of the
that's the
record, right? I really am not a fan of the early Childish Gambino efforts. I just found it cringeworthy, kind of weakly produced. I mean, I didn't think it was terrible, but when he put out that track, Me and Your Mama, holy shit. It was like hearing a completely different artist, right? And I'm not a huge fan of the album that ended up coming out. I think it's a little too derivative to really, really work for me. But the promise of that album is so high, and I'm actually really excited to see whatever Childish Gambino does next, at least musically. I mean, he's a very prolific guy in general, isn't he? So
yeah, movies, TV shows,
it's almost
Broadway, everything.
Yeah, it's almost not surprising that he takes such a drastic change of direction from hip hop to sort of more soul, funk type music. And the singles from that album were really fantastic highlights of last year for me. So I'm excited to see where he goes from now on, which is something that I wouldn't have said before those tracks dropped.
Yeah, Redbone was one of my favourites from last year, and I really like that album as well. Mostly because, as we've established, anything soul funk, I'm all away for. Get the plane tickets booked. I'm away to the soul heavens that album is.
I mean, it was very true to that sound. So I mean, I didn't think it was an unenjoyable album. I just thought it dipped its toes a little too deeply into those genres and didn't really do a whole lot original outside of some of the lyrical themes.
Yeah. For a slight change, because all of the, other than Kush's reaction to my load reload, all of our examples so far have been positive reaction to that artist changing. I really had to think about one that I hated, or not even hated, just really didn't like. And this is a very obscure and kind of irrelevant one, but Eric Clapton, okay? After the Slow Hand album, he definitely went more AOR, crappy soft rock, yacht rock, or just really smooth, schmaltzy stuff. Dad rock, indeed. And not even dad rock, a lot of dad rock rules.
Mark Kozolek would call it dad rock.
A lot of people would call it that. I'm talking like the album's August. I don't even know them because I've only sampled the singles from a crappy best of that I heard in 2015 called I can't even remember, but I did hear it, and just those songs were so schmaltzy and bad. And this is like the period that people revere Eric Clapton for, like after 1977. That period still has its really solid fans. People who call him like the Godfather or the best guitarist ever revere this period, but I really don't like it, and I seem to like it whenever he does bluesy stuff, which a lot of people don't like, because why would you listen to a white guy doing blues? But he's a really good guitarist, so it doesn't matter. But
I resent
you know
that
what I mean.
Statement.
No, I'm kind of just talking about what people don't like about him that I liked. But I don't like his schmaltzy 80s period, and I like his bluesier stuff more.
I've got a few points for this discussion that hopefully you guys can sympathise with me on. One of them is, well, I'll go with the one I like first, which is King Crimson, their transition from more prog rock stuff to the Discipline era, which was really heavily informed by bands like Talking Heads and some new wave aspects and some world music. I, like many others, really loved this transition. It still felt quintessentially like King Crimson, but with their new frontman, whose name is really slipping my mind right now. Quite similar to David Penn. Yes, that's the one. He's great. I love tracks on Discipline like Thelahun Ginjeet, I think is the name of the song. Really
not
great
heard that album.
storytelling. Have you not? Oh wow.
No, well, but I have no
and
reason to not like the change. Like, I feel like they could do the bouncy new wave schizopop as well as anyone else. So I'm all for the change.
I mean, it still has Robert Fripp's excellent guitar playing complementing it, and that's what really gives them a unique selling point, and not just have them sound way too similar to Talking Heads, which I have heard a lot of people criticise that period for sounding a little too similar to Talking Heads, but it's not really a big deal. I mean, if it's great music, it's great music. I mean, I can't say I'm a big fan of the records that followed Discipline, but there was also a great live album where they performed a lot of that material in that style, and a lot of older King Crimson material in that style, and it was really great.
But would you say their best album is their very first album?
I'm really torn between In the Court of the Crimson King, their first record, and Red. It really depends what mood I'm in. They're both masterpieces in my mind.
Yeah. For me, I think Red outshines In the Court a little bit, just a little bit, but it could fluctuate depending on the mood.
Yeah.
But I think Discipline was pretty good. But the 2 or 3 records after that, I had no real connection to. I wasn't feeling it.
I can't say I do either,
That's where I
to be
thought
honest.
you were going, Ed. I thought you were going with those ones because that's like the really that's the really not liked period, or not disliked, but the heavily polarized era of King Crimson.
Yeah.
But
and
it's still a change.
It's still pretty good. Like, the albums are still pretty decent albums. It's just like when you've put out 2 actually almost perfect albums, and then you put something out that's not as well. I think it's a similar effect with like Kendrick Lamar's new album, where like you put out these 2, and like even though the newest one isn't as bad, people see it worse just because of the comparing it to the last work that he's put out.
Yeah, I mean, Damn is I mean, this is pretty relevant to the discussion. Kendrick has basically changed his image with every record.
Oh, yeah, that's true actually.
I've loved all of them, so like,
yeah, that's fair.
It's not really a big deal, but if people went into Damn wanting another To Pimp a Butterfly, which is a really lofty expectation, they probably would be disappointed no matter how good the music is. But yeah, my other example is the Flaming Lips, who's yeah.
Well, but here's the thing: what's this gonna be? Because they've done so much different stuff.
That's fair.
Exactly,
that's fair.
They've made so many changes. No, my favourite period of that band is the obvious one, which is sort of Soft Bulletin all the way through to Embryonic.
Right, cool.
Not a big fan of the record that followed Yoshimi, but it had some good tracks on it, and I appreciated what they were trying to do with that record. What I can't appreciate so much is pretty much 95% of what they've done this decade. All the Miley Cyrus collaborations, all of the just random cover albums that just sound horrible, and all of the albums that seem to be like jokes. It's almost like they discovered Bandcamp and like
That's so true though.
That's not even true, because they put these records
sort of
out physically, like these pointless ass albums, like, and then their actual studio efforts, like The Terror, which I know you're a fan of, Alex, but I do not care for that album at all. And their newest album, which came out this year, Oxy Melody, just weak efforts compared to the band's golden era. And I know it's not really fair to compare it. I mean, we've just talked about how comparing things can really dampen how you feel about them, but I just can't get on board with what Flaming Lips do this decade. I find them really obnoxious.
This decade, one of our first reviews was Oxy Melody, and that I was so disappointed because I have been a Lips fan for such a long time, and the stuff they've been putting out in this last couple of years have just been such a turnoff, to the point where like literally on the way to the studio today, I was listening to some Yoshimi, and I was like, this is the Lips I remember. This is the one that I like, and I have not gone back to Oxymelody minus like one song on there.
I
I have
mean,
no
I
desire.
think Oxymelody is a great sounding album, but the songwriting is just not there anymore. Like,
Even some of the songs just sound way too overproduced and just slightly annoying to some extent.
I
yeah,
think I
some
spent
go
like
on for way too
yeah.
long.
I think I spent like 5 minutes of that review trying to tell you and Cam why I thought it sounded really bad on half the album. But anyway, I really liked The Terror, so I definitely saw Oxy Melody as a really bad step down because it's like the first official. Oh, actually, Peace Sword was pretty good, but it's the first official like
Yeah,
sort of release.
I was just gonna say, Peace Sword is actually a pretty great release. Despite what I've said about their music this decade, it's not like they're incapable of putting out good music. It's almost like they know they can make good music, but they're deciding to do other things. But who knows?
I have one last example I'll go into quickly because I'm 100% sure neither of you will be able to comment beyond. Oh, right, okay. Well, but we'll see.
We'll see.
It's Iron Maiden's frontman Bruce Dickinson. In his solo career, most of that is quite similar to Iron Maiden, maybe a bit more experimental, maybe a bit more. Well, here we go. Okay, so in 1994, he had his album Balls to Picasso, which was, generally speaking, quite a favourable album in the Iron Maiden sphere. It has probably his most celebrated solo track, Tears of the Dragon, which some people actually call the best Iron Maiden related to Finn of the 90s, which probably isn't true because of Fear of the Dark. Anyway, after that, in 1996, he released the album Skunk Works, which is a alternative rock album, decidedly. Like, yes, some of the riffs have a sort of metal tone to them, but it is an alternative rock album. I don't get why people don't like that. Like, is metal, especially like the really accessible power metal Iron Maiden does, and alternative rock, really that far removed? I guess, but it's like not that different, and I think he has some of the best vocals I've ever heard, just because he's a great vocalist, in an alternative rock context. It's amazing, I love that album. Back from the Edge, or whatever it's called, is one of my favourite songs of the 90s. I love that album, and I don't get why it's like not liked in his solo career.
I've got to say, Alex, you're absolutely right. I know nothing about whatever you're talking about.
I can
okay.
touch on Iron Maiden.
I've heard like
I think
yeah. I've heard some Maiden records, but Bruce Dickinson's solo stuff. I mean, you've recommended it to me in the past. It's just not quite got there yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is like the
thing with
sort of
Iron-
thing that you put off, definitely, like solo careers in general. Not deliberately, just like there's not as much incentive, especially if they're from such a
It's like a
acclaimed
weird
band.
subconscious thing. I mean, we're just about to review the new Gorillaz album, and I've seen a lot of people compare that to like, oh, well, if you want to hear more Damon Albarn singing, just listen to Damon Albarn's solo stuff. It's such a moot argument.
No.
It makes no sense. Like,
well, I guess it's technically true, but that's not the point.
yeah, it's not the point at all. So,
But anyway, that was my point. I really love that album. Any other examples, guys?
off the top of my head, I mean, this is almost a sort of cheat answer, but Swans, who are my favourite band going, have gone through so many transitions over the years, and somehow pretty much every single one of those transitions has worked for me. I mean, they went from really brutal, nihilistic, quite primordial beginnings to the really epic post-rock that they make now. And, you know, they're on the cusp of another transition now that they've sort of discontinued the current style with this farewell tour that they're doing at the moment. But
the thing with Swans is that they even change their sound within the same album sometimes.
Yeah,
and they don't maintain a sound ever.
Absolutely. I mean, they tend to take the same approach on an album, but sometimes purely for hitting you right in the face with whatever transition could be made from one style to another, they wouldn't be against making that decision. I mean, look at the Children of God album, which starts off with a really quite brutal track for its time, and then immediately transitions into the track In My Garden, which is one of the most blissful, beautiful tracks they ever put out, with the female vocals and it's just so far removed from what came before it, and I really appreciate Swan's ability to keep changing but keep maintaining the same level of quality, if not improving at times.
This is like a reverse mirror's image of last time, because I have no comment on Swans. I've not listened to any of their albums. Instead, I'm listening to solo Iron Maiden albums, which
I've only recently gotten to Swans in the last year or so, and I've loved, for the most part, almost everything they've put out, especially like just their like 30-minute jam sessions on their albums, which are just fantastic to listen to.
To Be Kind is probably my favorite album of the decade. It's such an astonishing piece of work. I was listening to my LP of it the other night, and I'm just continually blown away every time I hear it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sounds like a crazy experience anyway.
One I was surprised neither of you said was Radiohead.
Oh,
really?
It's kind of like ingrained in my mind though that they're like changes for I've known Radiohead so long that I've just like known all their changes, so it's like become just how I know the band. But yeah, that's true,
funny?
Kush.
You know what's funny? In my mind, I actually had Radiohead about a week ago when Alex told me about what we'd be discussing, and it completely slipped my mind, because like you said, Alex, it's such a sort of second nature thing for nerds like us who, you know.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and we are nerds.
It's been beaten like a dead horse over and over and over again. But Pablo Honey is a crap album, and Creep is not a very good song in my opinion. I mean, Creep and Anyone Can Play Guitar are like the couple of songs that people tend to salvage from that album. Don't care for them personally.
There's a few other salvageable songs for me, but yeah, I get what you mean.
It's just it's so different from what they did immediately after that even though you could look at an album like In Rainbows and say it's very different from an album like The Bends, they still very much come from the same place. Whereas that transition from Pablo Honey to The Bends is just it almost renders that first couple of years of their career pointless. It almost makes me think, yeah, that's a On a Friday album. That's not a Radiohead album.
It makes more sense.
So The Bends will always be a debut to me.
It makes more sense when you actually look at the My Iron Lung EP. There's like a little bit more understanding of how this band could turn into this band. But generally speaking, it is quite a weird change. Like, it is almost unimaginable.
Oh yeah, it's for me, like I don't hate Pablo Honey. I don't think it's nearly anywhere near their best work, but I don't hate it.
Oh, it doesn't make me angry or anything. It's just not a good album.
Every time I come back to it, I think I like it a little bit less because it just sounds so dated and sounds so 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of upsetting at that point, but like I do like the song Creep. I think the problem with that is that the fan base has turned a song into like, oh, you can't understand this song. This is what the normal people can't understand. Like, normal people can't understand OK Computer and Kid A, and so it's become the meme around the song. But like, I still enjoy portions of Pablo Honey, but not anywhere near what I enjoy from their later stuff, especially In Rainbows.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't compare. It just doesn't compare, really. That's
my very last one I had on my list was the Beastie Boys.
All right.
Because the Beastie Boys were originally like this punk rock, hardcore punk group
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they were under that
actually.
name.
That's true.
But originally, the group members did punk and hardcore punk, and then they switched it and did like East Coast hip hop and rap rock, which went over much better than like I think anyone expected for them to do. Like 3 white guys doing rap rock. But
greatest all white rap group of all time, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I think just because how like formative it is in my childhood, I listened to Fight for Your Right and Sabotage and all those songs on repeat as a child. So I think they always have a soft spot no matter like how cheesy they sound or how like dated they sound at this point.
Oh, Sabotage is an incredible track. It still sounds really fresh to me. I mean, maybe not Fight for Your Right so much, but still great tracks.
Really good. We've said enough.
Well, if that's it, then thanks for. Well, if that's
Jesus,
it, then
Alex, let the man finish. Sorry, dude. Go ahead.
Well, if that's it, then thanks for tuning to Busted Speakers. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know what other topics you want to discuss, and check us out on social media.